I know you wrote an article. I'm curious of this. 3 offensive questions Browns must answer after the bye, which we're here now. Number 1, is Jameis Winston auditioning to be the bridge quarterback of the future? Number 2, how much of the offensive line will need to be retooled for 2025? And number 3, will Ken Dorsey be the offensive coordinator moving forward? I think it was you and I that were talking when the Browns had the preseason. They had like the 3rd or 2nd ranked offensive line. I said, I'm concerned because offensive lines do not age gracefully. They age quickly, and they aged out. And I didn't think it would be quite as bad as it has been, but I didn't think they were going to be a top 5 offensive line. I just didn't.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we're talking about years building on this. You look at 2020, I would say that was the pinnacle, and there was a slow decline from there, but they were still good enough that if you view them against the rest of the league, you're like, that's a top 5 unit, that's a top 8 unit, and you paid them accordingly. That is a top flight unit as far as their paychecks go. Then you get to this season, and it was a conglomeration of a lot of things. You misevaluated the injury timetable for some of these players to return. And then you went and got like steady backups. You went and get a Brian Allen to be your backup center. Well, he's out for the season. Then his backup goes out for the season. And then you go get a Kima Deniji and Jermaine Ifedi to be veteran depth pieces, not to play, just to be there. And then, you draft Zach Zinter. So you're like, okay, they were prepared. And then when your tackles don't play, and then when you have fall off from your center, when, your guards are getting older, it just starts falling apart. And they're no longer this line that you can take pride in. And that's what, for me, that was the benchmark of the Barry Stefanski era, is you won on the line of scrimmage, both sides. That's kind of how they built this team from the inside out. And then when that falters, you see how weak it truly is. And now there's a lot of shuffling. This last game was the first time since week 2 that they had ran the same unit out 2 weeks in a row. They moved a lot of pieces around. Now we got DeJuan Jones at left tackle. This is a huge moment and opportunity to decide whether he can be your left tackle going forward. He's getting that opportunity now. If he can prove he can do that, that is a huge box to check off that you don't have to worry about going into the offseason. But you have plenty of things to look at. You have centers and your guards. Definitely you need to bring people into this building, and if Joel decides to retire, is Zinter ready? He definitely, when he got his opportunity, his play strength really wasn't enough to anchor down and handle some of the bull rushing on the interior. And when we talked about how much they're getting paid, and they're all under contract for next season, but mind you, none of them have guaranteed money next season. So if there is an offseason to kind of retool this offensive line, it is coming up in 2025.
Yeah, relative to Jameis Winston, I would think if it's me, I'm bringing in several candidates because I don't think you're going to be drafting. If you're not drafting number 1 overall, and even if you are, I'm not sure that matches. I don't think there isn't a can't miss guy at the top of the draft, and we've seen that hasn't worked out when there hasn't been the Joe Burrow or LeBron James no doubter at number 1 overall.
Yeah, we talk about that. Like if it's one thing to be bad, but you got to be bad in the right season for that to really matter. You can be bad in the wrong year, and there's no slam dunks at that position, and then you're kind of just hoping and praying, and you don't want to force it. So. Jameis, he quoted Eminem at the end of his game against the Ravens, and it's true. Like, this is his moment. He hasn't been given a ton of opportunity since he was no longer a starter in Tampa. He got a brief stint with New Orleans, and he was 5-2 with 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions before he had tore his ACL. Since then, this is his first real opportunity at starting for any type of duration. But they're straddling. There's not a huge line here. Like if you're mathematically eliminated, it almost feels like they're going to go to DTR at that point, just to see what they got. But right now, if they're trying to win and trying to evaluate what they have, this is Winston's opportunity to seize the moment and prove that he is a viable option. And no doubt they're going to bring people in for him to have to earn that against in the offseason. But this is his chance to make a claim. If he fails to do that, it will truly be hitting the reset button on the quarterback room.
Yeah, I get the thought behind the DTR thing. I'm not there with seeing if I'm pretty sure what you have is a guy who can be a serviceable backup that I don't think can be a legitimate starter on a playoff team in the NFL. I haven't seen the accuracy, I haven't seen the arm strength. He's athletic, but he's not really sound in the pocket. There's just the litany of things that I have questions about.
And even if that's what he proves, even if you give him playing time and he proves that he can be a backup, They truly don't know what he is, you know, and I understand that as far as players that are on your roster that can affect next year, he is one of them. So they kind of want to see what he is. But I at that point, I don't think you're evaluating the rest of the offense. You're just evaluating him. And I don't think they're to that tipping point yet. But they'll get there once they're mathematically eliminated. You know, if they lose the two next games or just win 1 or 3, and all of a sudden it gets to that point, that's probably when Jameis gets the hook. So he's really got to go out there and show that he is of the level of an NFL caliber starting quarterback. And if not, they're going to bring everyone in they can, turn over every stone to try to find one.